And then you have tragedies where the West causes catastrophe in a third world country, not by imposing market economy, but by imposing market economy while itself violating the rules. For example, for me, there are two clear tragedies today. One is Madagascar, the other is Mali. What happens in Mali? I saw a nice, simple report of CNN a year ago where I'll simplify the structure, but it's a wonderful story. The south of Mali is mostly cotton. They produce cotton of the best quality in the world for 1/3 of the price of the American cotton. The problem is that because of the vote system, blah, blah, support for farmers, the United States are giving to their own cotton farmers more state subsidy than the entire state budget of Mali. So the Mali Minister of Economy, he gave a very nice interview, I remember listening, he said, but wait a minute, please, okay, you are telling us obey market, no state intervention, why don't you follow the same rules? Like, if only you obey the same rules with cotton, all our economic problems more or less would have been over. Of course, United States simply cheat here. The North is the same, here the culprits are Europeans. The North had cows, milk, and so on, beef. The problem is that it was all ruined because it couldn't compete with Europe, because again, to cut a long story short, European Union gives more support per year, around 500 to 600 euros to a cow, than its per capita state brutto product of Mali. Again, they cannot compete. The other thing, that the latest tendency is even worse than what Clinton said. It's that there is a new trend now, and it's happening silently. You don't read a lot in the newspapers. I just found here and there some, even in big media, I think in Newsweek or Time, and it's a shocking thing. Do you know that now many developed countries are simply buying massively in third world countries gigantic parts of the best arable land to produce their stuff for them? Sunflowers, cotton, not even mostly food. For example, a Korean gigantic state-supported corporation, that was what made the news, bought in Madagascar around 40% of the best, the best 40% of the arable land of the entire island. And they even admitted that mostly they will produce, I don't know, not even food, but sunflower, some industrial stuff, industrial agriculture, and so on and so on. And they claim, okay, nonetheless, we will introduce schooling, we will organize the country. Yeah, but again, the country will be, again, even more dependent. The tragedy is that this even is happening in countries which we usually associate with hunger. Like, you know that a British company is buying land in Somalia now, of all the places, and so on. The last thing, Bush is right, sorry, Clinton is right, when he said that food is not a commodity like others, which could be simply left to the market. I only claim that it's not only food. Defense, arms, it's also not a commodity like others. Water is also not. Environment is not. Culture is not. Education is not. Health is not. So if you start with what Clinton admits, you just have to expand the land, and you finish with some kind of almost communism, I would say, no? So to conclude now, what do I mean then by communism? In the sense of where do I see prospect for communism? What was the last great explosion of the left? It was, of course, in Europe. It was, of course, 68. But I'm not so soft towards 68. I'm very critical of it. Why? Because I claim that nonetheless, mostly the tragedy of the 68 was that it was perfectly appropriated for the new capitalist revolution. This so-called postmodern consumerist, no, not even consumerist, whatever we call it, third wave capitalism. I'm referring here to an interesting book by Luc Boltanski, and if Capello, The New Spirit of Capitalism, which claims, with special view of France, but I claim all holds for the entire world, that after the first epoch of capitalism, the entrepreneurial capitalism, individualist Protestant capitalism, which ended around the Great Depression in the 30s, and then after the second epoch, the so-called organized monopole capitalism, mass-produced big companies and so on, capitalism, which lasted somewhere till the 70s, that we are now entering a new epoch of capitalism. Capitalism today is gradually abandoning the hierarchical structure of the production process. It is developing a network-based form of organization founded on employee initiative, autonomy of the workplace. So instead of hierarchical centralized chain of command, we get networks with a multitude of participants organizing work in the form of teams or projects intent on customer satisfaction, a general mobilization of workers thanks to their leaders' vision. So the idea is that, and I think this is the result, it was a masterful ideological operation. The actual result of 68 is that all the basic motives of 68, against alienation of labor, cultural autonomy, sexual liberation, freedom of expression, realize yourself, in, of course, a twisted new wave way, all this was incorporated into this new capitalism, so that, as you can see with its apologists like Bernard-Henri Lévy and others, their idea is that 68, that we now learn, was not really anti-capitalist, but was basically anti-communist, was anti-authoritarian, that the main target was were the authoritarian communists, so that today 68 won with this postmodern, more human form of capitalism. Some people call it cultural capitalism. How does this function? And I claim, of course, that this is even more of an ideology. Let me give you a simple, this is of course superficial, but there is a point to be made here. How do you perceive wide publicity today? How are we addressed by publicity when some commercial report, whatever, a TV spot asks you, addresses you, tries to solicit you to buy a product? We have two standard forms, which more or less correspond to the two big forms of capitalism. First, there is reference to the real properties, utility of a product. No? Like, you want a car. The publicity tries to convince you it's a fast car, reliable, doesn't use too much gasoline, whatever, and so real properties. Then we have next level, the level of envy, symbolic status. You buy a product for the status symbol that it gives you. Like, let's say Land Rover. The traditional publicity is, do you need a car which can drive up mountains, go to the water, and so on and so on? Land Rover can do it. If we are in this second level of status symbol, then it addresses you. You want to appear strong, better than your peers, and so on, buy a Land Rover, whatever. But I claim that today we have a different type of publicity which is getting more and more important. The publicity which refers neither to the real properties of the object nor to its symbolic status, but to its, as it were, imaginary way that it fits your ego, supports your true self, and so on and so on. Like today's publicity, ideally, for Land Rover would have been, are you constrained, do you feel alienated in a big city life? Imagine a Land Rover where you are free in nature, you can realize your true self, and so on and so on. It's this line of thinking. In a way, it is that it's no longer that you have, on the one hand, consumerism and then authentic life. The authentic, meaningful life is trying to penetrate consumerism itself. Like, I don't know how are you here, I didn't see walking around Amsterdam many of these Starbucks coffee Do you have them here? That's good. If you get them, bomb them, because they are the worst in this. Namely, how I hate it whenever I enter in United States or London to a Starbucks coffee, you are bombarded with this ecological charity, you know, like with every cup of coffee, you save a Colombian kid or all that stuff. Or now they even have, it's disgusting, ethos, like E-T-H-O-S, like ethos, ethics. They're selling ethos, like ethos, ethics, water. The idea is for every, I quote their publicity, every time you purchase a bottle of ethos water, you contribute $0.05, 5 cents, towards our goal of supporting humanitarian water programs in Africa, Asia, Latin America, and